Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Derek Johnson in the house. So, everybody, we all know how that goes. He likes to just give us, just talk to us about what's going on. Hopefully, we can maybe get some questions, but typically we don't. I think he is out deer hunting. So, he typically gives us 90 minutes, but he's got an hour today. So, if you guys just sit back and enjoy the conversation. Hopefully, Derek will answer your questions through the course of this podcast. We'll see if we can get some in there toward the end, but I just don't know because I think he's out, in the woods hunting, and we don't necessarily always either get the best reception sometimes with him. So please, everybody, I hope you can understand that, but that's just kind of how it goes with Derek. And I know Derek does a lot of his Facebook lives, and he, 3-4 hours, and I'm sure he answers a lot of you guys' questions over there, hopefully. Also, to everybody, my typical saying, be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting into your mind. A lot of noise going on out there, everybody. A lot of noise, keeping us distracted from what's going on. A lot of fear mongering too. So please stay out of that, everybody. I understand how it can get a little mind twisting, but please be careful, and really pay attention to the 3 to 5 people that haven't led you. Not the 3 to 5, excuse me. I'm gonna say 1 to 3, because we're finding out some people are falling by the wayside that maybe we thought we were liking for some time, and realizing that, oh, maybe not so much anymore. But 1 to 3 people, if they haven't gotten you in a rut this whole time that you've been following, then they're more than likely going to get you through this to the end of it, everybody. So hang tight, but really be careful who you listen to and who you follow. It's not about following all these chat rooms or anything anymore, just because it's just getting really confusing, and they're really staying stuck on the surface level stuff. Because if you're paying attention to what's really going on, and that's what Trump is doing with Venezuela, and basically their operation, right? What we did in Venezuela, how he's putting the world on notice. He's going to Davos, not to, everybody's saying, oh, Carney's coming out saying the New World Order still. In fact, no, he basically was saying that. And if you listen to Prometheus Action, telling everybody that the New World Order is dead. So Trump is going over to Davos, and these guys are in sheer panic, guys. And from what I'm hearing is he's going over there to deliver. He's not negotiating anything, anybody. He's delivering their surrender, that they're going to be surrendering to him, right? So just be careful, guys. And I think I did put that on the wall with Prometheus Action. They put some information out today. So if you aren't following them, I highly suggest them. They are a very, very good one to listen to as well. I would actually like to try to get one of those ladies on my podcast, but we'll wait and see if that's possible. I know they're very busy, but just check them out, guys. They're over on X. Also, to everybody, we're being listened to in over 100 countries, so we are making a lot of great positive noise, getting information that we're on the right track here at the Revival of America. The guests that I'm bringing on and everything, they're consistent, they're solid. So we're putting out a lot of great information, and we're getting that heads up, thumbs up. We're on the right track. So hopefully that will give you guys some solace to know that we're moving in the right direction, everybody. So hang in there with us. We'll get you through the end of this if you're, struggling to really know who to follow. And really, if it's really that challenging, guys, please, first and foremost, it's always God. But then the best advice I can give you is Donald Trump, because he's really telling us without directly telling us, but he's telling us more now than ever. His accounts, the White House accounts, and then Rapid Response 47. So those are also great places to go if you're really confused on who to follow and who to listen to. So anyway, if you guys come into the podcast late or want to share it with somebody, please follow the podcast host or the social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, PocketCast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are Jenny Dreed Facebook, at Jenny_Dreed X, at JDreed Rumble, at JDreed True Social, at JDreed Instagram, The Revival of America right here on Telegram, and then of course The Revival of America over on YouTube. And then also too, if you guys have a story or a journey you would like to tell, please submit your submissions to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. I'll get you I vet these stories, guys, because unfortunately I am getting some fake stories because people just want to be relevant and get a voice on a podcast, right? So if I believe it's legitimate, I'll reach out to you via email and we'll get your story and your voice on the podcast. Because remember, it's your stories, your journeys that are going to help shape this new world we're coming into. And last but not least, go check out the website, therevivalofamerica.com. We've got John Baxter's information over there, Field McConnell children's page. I'm going to be bringing in a blog over there. So hopefully we will be having some articles going on over there. And then Rick Anson with Brain IQ Health, All Natural Healing is over there as well. And that again is therevivalofamerica.com. And then if you want to message me, I'm centralizing everything to my email. It's therevivalofamerica at yahoo.com because I'm just getting so many messages throughout my social media platforms and the podcast hosts and my email. It's just easier to have all of you guys go to the Revival of America at yahoo.com and I will reach back out to you. Giving a few guys, be patient with me because I do have my day gig, and obviously that comes precedent before the podcast because got to pay the bills, right? And that's what pays the bills. So with that, everybody, Derek is in the house. Like I said, he's got an hour today, so we're gonna let Derek kind of have the floor, and maybe we can get into a couple questions at the end. But depending on his time frame, we'll see how that goes. So, Derek, how are you, my friend? Are you out there deer hunting again? Did I see?
Well, I was, but I had to come out of the woods to do this, and I have a obligation at 6:30. So I'm just I went and sat anyway, just in case one wanted to slip through and pop his ears out. But
So so it seems like you've been out, you've been out in the woods for. Have you been out there for a while, just kind of deer hunting for a little bit?
well, in the South, it's a lot different than it's like the U.S. has cultures of deer hunting, and everywhere has seasons. Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and I can't remember what other states. Our seasons last from October to February the 10th, or Alabama's does. So, I mean, I live near woods, and I hunt every day if I can during the season. So, uh,
Oh, damn. Okay. So that would make sense why sometimes you might be in a different location out in the woods. Have you been successful and shot any? I'm a city girl, so I'm like, but have you got any deer?
I've seen a few, but nothing that one I couldn't get a good shot on, and but that's just the way it is. And I'm not a I mean, I'm a conservationist, but I'm not someone who's just a stickler to other people. Other people harvest all kinds of deer, but I typically shoot grandpa buck. So I don't just have to have meat in my freezer like some people do. Uh, but my freezer's pretty full already. And I could manage to survive off of it right now. Not that I think we have to, but you know, I always live with a motto of a country boy can survive because that's how we're raised down here. It's just a way of life. That's why one of the Mossy Oak or one of those their motto it's not a way of life, it's an obsession. So I mean, but it is a way of life though. It's just and down here, especially in South Mississippi and South Alabama, in Georgia and Louisiana, parts like that. It's just our own language, really. Uh, and then you have different parts of the country that do hunt, but they have different rhetoric with it, different terminology. And uh, down here, we call them hunt clubs. Out in Texas, they call them a lease. Well, I'm like, what the lease has to do with the property. It don't have anything to do with your actual men and people who come to your club. But they don't do that out there. Down here, we have clubs where men will get an old house, and I'm telling you, most women won't go in it. It looks like a rat hole. Uh, but some of the wealthiest, most prominent people will be in those rat holes just because they want to say they gruffed it out, over the weekend or a couple of days or whatever. So, uh, but a hunting club, like, meaning it's got a bunch of men who have a sign out board. They sign their name on it and they tell what region of the property they're going to. In Texas, they don't do that. They do that, but they call it a lease. They may sit around a house somewhere and talk, but they still call it a lease. Yeah, I'm going to my lease this weekend. Down here, we call it, hey, going to the club this weekend, going to the hunt club. So if you're in New York City, naturally, or somewhere else, people say, you're going to the club. Which club you going to? But down here, it's a hunting club. So, uh,
Oh, I
or
love that. Thank you for sharing that.
or a hunting
Um,
camp. We'll say a hunting camp. People go, "Where are you camping?" I'm like, "We're not camping. It's a house that stays in the woods. It has a fire pit or a old. Down here, we still have old burning stoves like they had in the 1900s, 1800s in the old houses, because some of these old houses are that old. Um, they're old wooden, and I mean, one little flint goes the wrong way, and the house is on the ground. That's how old some of these houses are. But that's a hunting camp. We use that term, and people say, "Where are you camping?" I'm like, "We're not camping. We're not taking a tent and going out in the woods and freezing our rear ends off. Not when we got an old house that we can put a stove in and put some firewood in and sit around there." But that's another terminology.
Thank you for sharing that, Derek. I appreciate it. Yeah, because I've been wondering, I'm like, because you do a lot of the lives on Facebook too, and it doesn't look like sometimes you're in front of your fireplace, like you normally would, like your house. I'm like, I wonder where he's at this time. But so Derek, oh my gosh, there's so much going on right now. A lot of people stuck in the noise. Um, I know you've been talking a lot about, this whole shooting of the Renee Good and everything, but can you maybe touch a little bit on, because we know all of that stuff is going on, and then they're calling for the 1,500 troops to go up there to Minnesota. I don't know, aren't they? Are they already there? I want to say that they're already there, or no, not yet. Are they still on standby?
Well, I'm sure they're already there, but some of this has already happened, a lot of it. But
Yes, yes.
but you know, people got to remember that the central casting portions, they'll still shut down streets and show certain things, and it may look real, but it's not. Um, and that is where people, um, you know, I hate to say don't listen, but then again, it feels that way. But it, my dad and I just had this conversation last night. I said, look, what people have to do, you got to know who's in command and what's their plan. And even though people look at President Trump as a president, which he had to be in order to fulfill this, but he's alluded to multiple times that's validated the whole military government, military operation, military occupation, continuity government in exile, and puppet government. And so that's where I keep stressing to people, until you separate everything that you think you've known in your life. I'm not knocking how you were raised. I'm not knocking your mom, your dad, or anything like that. But just because you were raised a certain way or taught something or thought something, don't mean it was correct. Now, this is religion aside and all those things, who you live with, who you love, who you like, all that aside. That has nothing to do. That's where Christians struggle. They think I'm condoning gays and this. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not God. So I let God deal with what God deals with. And there's a way to live and let people decide on their own without infringing on them and them infringing on you and us. That is what the American veteran does. We protect the borders. We protect the playground. We don't tell you how to play ball. All right. But there are things that we do deem that says, okay, like drinking and driving. We do know that, when you drink too much, you get impaired. we know the repercussions of that. We see the results of what can happen when you drink and drive. So people have decided, hey, we don't like drinking and driving. And if you drink and drive, here's a punishment for that. People have decided that. So it's the same thing with anything else when it comes to things that we do have absolute proof of. But when people start infringing on the way you believe and how you should believe and who you should love and who you should like and all that, there's a way to keep it out of politics, keep it out of government. And then, hey, to each your own. You want to believe that way in your household? Great. That's fine. Your household. That's it. But if people deem we don't want it at work, we don't want it at church, we don't want it at schools, then that's what people decide. This is why Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address, his first one, was so important. His first inaugural address, he said he had no, zero, nada, zilch. He was not going to touch slavery. He left that up to people. This is why Governor Wallace, George Wallace of Alabama, people don't even look at the principle. Governor Wallace stood at the University of Alabama and he blocked a black woman, young woman, from going in a building. Not because he was racist. He said, I am the governor, and right now the law reads the way it reads. Congress is to change that. A governor is supposed to enforce the law no different than a president is supposed to enforce the law. The Congress are the ones who write and pass the legislation. They're the ones who put the bills up and pass those, and they become law. So a governor who don't stand up for the law, he's no good at all. But see, people cannot separate that terminology and that principle. He wasn't personally standing up saying, I don't want this black woman being in here with all these white people. No, he said, the law reads this way, and I'm here because the law reads that way. Get the Congress to change the law. See, that's where people have to have the power, but you have to think. You have to think and then apply. You have to have a good attitude and effort, initiative. And a lot of people don't have that. And that's what we're seeing right now still to this day, is the fact that the law reads the way it reads. There's a lot of laws that don't need to be there, sure. But the intricate laws that outline what President Trump is working with is a blueprint. And that blueprint forms this outline that is a military government, military operation, military occupation, continuity government, and then it has the strategies of a government in exile, the puppet government, and then what you're seeing right now with ICE and all these things, those are, they have to get people involved. And sometimes criticism, obviously constructive criticism, is not bad as long as it's constructive. But when men and women or people out there kicking, fussing, cussing, screaming, griping, moaning, complaining, and all these other things, and can't even name the three branches of government, no one's going to listen to you, because you're still demonstrating that you don't want to apply and have the initiative to apply or put in the effort to read and study and apply what you're supposed to know as an American, what your civil authority, responsibilities, and duties are, as outlined and prescribed in the Declaration of Independence. See, the Constitution don't apply to you. It's for you to use against the representatives. But the Constitution don't apply to you and I. That's our framework to hold Congress responsible to their duties because they represent us. We the people, are the government. The Declaration is for you. And in that Declaration of Independence, it specifically says it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish any form of government that goes against its foundation. And it tells you, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, and then it says, becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right and their duty to offthrow such government. Offthrow means to throw off, to get rid of, demolish, decimate, obliterate, wipe the slate clean. That's what that means. So when you heard President Trump in 2017 and 2021 and everybody started chanting, drain that swamp, drain that, what the hell did you chant it for? You're watching the swamp being drained right now. But the people who didn't pay attention to what you know and others might know, they're having to see certain things play out in front of them to get their attention, to grasp their attention. So sometimes them yelling, kicking, cussing, screaming's not a bad thing, but you, the patriot, don't need to be reacting to it. You don't need to get in there and wallow with them. You're supposed to be different. Same thing as a Christian. You're supposed to be different. The Bible ain't about love. The Bible's about repentance. Love is a part of that, but the Bible is all about repentance and changing your ways, not being a part of the world. Love is an aspect and a heavy aspect of it, but the Bible is not about love. The Bible is about forgiveness, repentance, and changing your old ways. And it ain't easy, but it's worth it. And it's the same thing with what we're going through right now. It ain't easy, but it's worth it. And that's why so many people need to quit worrying about the terms like patriot and a fighter and a warrior, because most people ain't looking that way. You can't be up one day and down the next. This ain't gambling. All right. This ain't Vegas. This ain't Biloxi, Mississippi. This ain't Tunica, Mississippi. All right. This ain't gambling. Your attitude needs to be positive all day, every day, even if you feel like your back is up against the wall. That's when you should be the biggest fighter of them all. That's when you go through true baptism under fire, is when your back is against the wall and the enemy's enclosed you. You should be the biggest fighter of them all then. That's when you should look like Lieutenant Dan on the top of that ship in the movie Forrest Gump. You call this a storm? I'll show you a storm. That's supposed to be your attitude. Everything you're seeing with Minnesota is just one aspect of it, one tiny aspect. This is one sliver of the puzzle. But that's also tying into the money. Billions, not millions and not multi-millions, billions of dollars have left Minnesota going to Somalia. Do you know where Black Hawk Down, the movie, was based on in the United States military? Somalia. All right. So there's a lot of ties to whom? What would Somalia be under? What president would that be under? I wonder. The 1990s. Go figure. So see, it's all tying into the money. What did President Trump say straight out the gate 2017? Follow the money. Follow the money. See, and that's why I don't care. If I end up with one follower, I'll be all right, because I didn't do this for that. I'm a retired veteran showing you the truth, and sometimes the truth is hard to accept. It's hard to accept. But it is what it is. And so the money, follow the money. And all these things tie in. Every aspect of it ties in. But President Trump, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Some of you have damned so many people to hell, and you just damn them to hell because of what your little bubble says and your little fuzzy feeling in your stomach. Your little fuzzy feeling in your stomach isn't a team stomach, meaning you're not a part of that bigger team. You're not a part of that mission. You're going to be a product of the mission. You're like that old gospel song, when he was on the cross, I was on his mind. Yeah, well, you're that part, but you're not a part of this operation. You're the goal of the operation. You're not a part of the operation. Every veteran that has been called back, we are a part of that. And there's a bunch of us. But every aspect of us are, because we know a little something that ties into something, because we've seen a little something, we know a little something, and they trust us with that. But so many people will not seek to comprehend what you can comprehend via unique strategies of the United States military as a whole, every branch as a whole, how we intricately fit together as a whole, but also the other aspect, the unconventional warfare and irregular warfare. They're not conventional for a reason. They're not regular for a reason. They're unique and different for a reason. And it's going to require a lot of thinking outside of the box for a reason. But you have to have a foundation first before you can let your mind expand and think whatever you want to think. See, when you're working with a foundation, special operations loves people who can think in multiple different ways. And there's no always a solid answer to some solutions. There's a lot of variables. And then when you end up solving it, it looks like that was the solvent. But that ain't always the case for every mission and every goal and every objective. So that's why they call it hybrid warfare, because you can take different pieces of asymmetrical, guerrilla warfare, um, all the other warfares, cybersecurity, whatever we're dealing with. You can take portions and pieces depending on what your operation is. And then they call it hybrid because you're integrating those. And so what's going on in like Minnesota, this is all part of that. And so I was just posting earlier where President Trump shared again about the Somali and the voting. So see, it ties into follow the money. It ties into the 90s and that money, the Clintons and the Bushes. All right. Then it ties into your Dominion systems. So then by advertently and inadvertently, directly and indirectly, Minnesota ties into Venezuela because that's where your Dominion systems were. And Maduro was put in by Obama, 2013. Clinton and Putin had met in 2010. The greatest scandal of all that President Trump said was the greatest scandal of all was the uranium one, when the Clintons sold for their portion for $145 million. That was 2010. In 2011, Gaddafi, bin Laden. 2012 is when Putin took back over as president. He was prime minister from 2008 to 2012. Then he can't, I take that, yeah, I had it backwards there for a moment. But he was out of power for a moment, and then he came back in. So someone, and even Hillary Clinton, I'm going to paint a picture that I've never painted before, just to paint one, just to show you how things can work. Someone could be evil. They could be corrupt. They could be going to the execution. Absolutely. But they still could do something humanitarianly for the sake of everyone else, because they may have a guilty conscience. So Hillary may have given up all the Rockefellers. Who knows? But it will come out in history, because history has to account for this. It has to. They're not going to let a Holocaust type thing happen again without knowing what happened, because of the effects of that. And that's where the good guys and good gals out there, all intricately working on the backside, some you'll never know. You'll never know their names. You'll never know their faces. You'll never know their lives. I know a lot of those people that you're never going to know that made all this happen for you. And they don't really care. They don't, because they're at a different place in their life. And so all these things tie together, even though it's one big dirty playground on the other side. But someone even such as Hillary could have spilled all the beans behind closed doors. And she deserved, let's say if it was her, she would deserve the credit for that aspect, even though it's kind of one of those terms where you go, or those phrases or quotes where you'd say, well, I can forgive, but I can't forget. It'd be that. But so many people right now have this attitude of bitterness and hatred for people you never known, and only because what you've been told. And some are playing roles. Now, that will be known to certain people, but that's what Americans do, though, that has got to change. There's cases where people have been wrongfully accused of like a murder, something real hardcore, And they were absolutely proven innocent via DNA and something as such as technology like pinging their phone and, oh, well, they weren't there. And well, 50% of America, though, will still damn them to hell, even with evidence. 50% will still scrutinize them and ostracize them and absolutely run them out of town when they have solid evidence that they didn't do it. But what did Americans do? Judged them on the front. Didn't wait and see. And also didn't put what on? The boot on, the shoe on. What if that was you? What if that was your child? What if it was your mama, your daddy, or whoever? Americans have a bad problem with that. And what's great about some of this is I'm not only speaking on my behalf and the United States of America and the military laws, the military orders, etc., but the Law War Manual, etc., Geneva Conventions, Hague Conventions, Nuremberg trials, and everything. But my grandfather, the one I talk about with Hank Williams and World War II, he couldn't stand a lying politician, but he definitely couldn't stand a politician that was all about war first. Now, war, sometimes in history, before World War I, there were times when, yes, that was the last line of defense and they had to do it. But World War I, World War II, they were preventable as well. They were already in swamp, already building the swamp up. Then you get to Korea, 1950. Then you get to Vietnam, 1955. And then you can just keep going with all the others. They were preventable because they were all being operated by a swamp. But what Americans aren't doing is trying to see how to prevent that. The way you prevent that is knowing your civil responsibilities, your civil duties, and your civil authority. That is knowing the laws that are being passed before they're passed. See, Americans right now want to gripe and demand justice, but you don't want to know how we got here. You don't want to know the laws and orders that got us here. You don't want to know all the gaslighting and manipulation and the lying. You don't want to know the solution of that. You think the solution is justice. Justice is not the solution. Justice is the inevitable, but it's also a damnation. Because why do we have to go through that? At this extremity and at this level, meaning flooded, this many names, this many people. That's why you had to have a 45-47. So many people, Americans, are judging people and you don't even know who they are. You really don't know their background. You don't know anything about them because you're not part of the operation. But in order to infiltrate a ring that big, you have to have a lot of good people, a lot of skilled people, a lot of skilled good people who are not compromisable, who can get in there, still play the part, look the part, remember everything, make it to a safe zone, get the information, and then do it until the operation is complete. And see, people hear war, they don't hear the words battle. There's a lot of battles in a war. There are a lot of missions in a battle. There's a lot of strategies in a mission. No one wants to think of that. That's where most people who are griping, complaining, whining, fussing, kicking, cussing, moaning, complaining, and all that right now, that's your missing pieces. Because those are what's going to give you a solid foundation. And it may not be something you like. It may not be something you love. It may not be your forte. You know, like my mother, she don't like war books. She don't like certain kind of books. All right, certain kind of humor for different people. She likes old Amish stories and all that. Well, naturally, she's not going to be someone who's going to even pick up my book and be like, oh, let me crack open this baby. You know, even though I'm her son and she loves me more than life, it's going to be difficult because she's never thought that way. She's never operated that way. She's never had to think that way. She's never had to operate that way. But my mom ain't out there whining, bitching, fussing, cussing, complaining, griping, kicking, and yelling and acting like a heathen or a hypocrite. So therefore, that's not who I'm talking about. But all the people who are, but want something different or demanding something, I just made a quote yesterday, and someone messaged me, and they were like, rattle trapology. That's what they called it, because I called it that. And I said, right now, what we're doing is making sure the future's past don't look like the past. Let me say that one more time. Let me preach a little bit here. We're making sure that the future's past don't look like the past. See, but every American who keeps following people like Steve Bannon, who's a piece of, you know what? President Trump's called him out, said he was not a part of my presidency, said all kinds of things about him. He's the one who let the dude in the White House who wrote all these books about president. He is a traitor. By definition, he's a traitor, and he's a piece of trash, scumbag. That is a point where you're not talking bad about someone. You're judging a tree by the fruit it bears, like the Bible says. People out there, you can't judge people. Yes, you can. When they show you their fruit, you most certainly can, because they displayed that fruit. So he's just one example, and people flock to him like a fly on a fresh turd. We have examples of this. Drink the Kool-Aid. I bet all them people who drank that Kool-Aid in Jonestown, I bet they wish they could come back and hear some real truth. But they were so locked in, and this one guy had them so mesmerized. And truth ain't like that. Truth will kick you in the butt. Truth will knock you in the teeth. But if you're any kind of person, you'll get up. And that's why I love the quote. That's why I love Sylvester Stallone, because he writes most of his scripts. And when he wrote the new Rambo, and he also wrote the new Rocky, the new Rocky clip where he says, life ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It'll beat you down if you let it. But life ain't how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's about how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. You have watched President Trump. That's why they have used all these different tactics, unconventional tactics. You can look in Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. You've heard me quote it. If you've listened to me, page 11, Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, 2016. All you got to do is go to that pyramid in there, the Revolutionary Pyramid, and look at all those lines on that pyramid. Every aspect of it you've been seeing. Riots, discredits to law enforcement when you need to. There's all kinds of things that pyramid of unconventional warfare outlines. And every aspect of it you've been watching. Even the quote-unquote assassinations, all are a part of unconventional warfare, because it can flip narratives out there. And when you get people in a good spot, let me grade another example. My mother, she hates worms, hates them. I mean, some people hate snakes, some people hate spiders. A worm, she can't stand them. To the degree she'll probably faint and maybe have a stroke or a heart attack, depending on how big it is, how ugly it is, and if someone was torturing her with it. Hates them, loathes them, cannot stand them. When I was a kid, I didn't know that, and I ran up with one, and she just started screaming and ran in the house. And my dad's like, "Hey, don't do that to her." Yeah, and I didn't know. I was little, but now I was somewhere one time, and a worm was literally crawling under her. Don't know where it came from, how it got there. And I said, "Hey, trust me, look at me, give me your hands, and walk forward." She knew then. And she was someone who didn't look down when you told them not to look down. But I didn't tell her not to look down, or I didn't say, "Hey, don't look down." I just said, "Look at me, give me your hands, and let me walk forward. Let me walk you forward." She trusted me. She knew something was up. I walked her way away. And I said, "All right, stand right there." I went and I picked that baby up and relocated him. All right. Same thing that you can apply with President Donald John Trump, even though he's the face of this, and this is really generals and admirals and leaders and world leaders and other generals and other admirals of other nations all together, the good guys and good gals, strategy, that's how they are doing with this. Why in the heck would they alarm you right out the gate? Why would they scare you on purpose? That's why I kept trying to say in 22 and 3 that President Trump ain't going to get arrested. All this other stuff's not going to happen. And everybody kept falling for all these big names and all these different, oh, he's going to get arrested or da-da-da. No, he's not. Why would we use fear? Now, you can be scared and you can get scared and you can be fearful if you don't know what's going on, because that's a natural instinct if you don't know what's going on and if you don't, what? Apply your faith. All right? Like I told my mother in the early go, 2016, I said, when I get scared, you can get scared. But we're about to have a big operation. And when I get scared, you can get scared. Same thing I tell people when I'm flying or whatever. When I get scared, you can get scared. All right, so no fear. All right. John Wayne had a famous quote. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyways. You got to always apply that every time. And even when you feel fearful, even when you feel scared, apply something. Apply a quote somewhere, somehow, of one of those or one of your heroes that talks about it. Somehow, some way, apply that. Or the Bible. I mean, it talks about that. I didn't give you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind, which means I give you a sound mind means you need to what? Think clearly, breathe a little bit, think, have control. I got you. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thine art with me. You got to quote it. You got to live it. You got to breathe it. So same thing. They will not use fear on you. Some things and strategies that we're doing may look like fear, and you may think it's producing fear, but it's not, because you're not a part of the production. You're part of the visions, the visuals. You're seeing the product of what the product is. You're seeing the goal. You're seeing the objective. You're seeing the mission's goal and objective. You're not that. You're the protection portion. We're to protect you. We're to shield you, protect you. So what they're doing is an all-out clean out of every single aspect, top to bottom, all over the world. The money, decentralize the banks, and everything else, flipping everything back, taking everything. That's why they use President Donald John Trump, who can't be bought. His money wasn't centralized bank money. He's a product of everybody else out here. We're the same thing. If you're in real estate or whatever you're doing in life, if you're making millions, you're still part of that aspect. He's not a part of how they did it. The swamp would create all these hedge funds and create all these different funds and different accounts and different things. And then, like, they had, quote unquote, Joe talking about the border. I was talking about this a while ago, where he said, oh, I went back and I posted this again when they had him in a speech. He said, well, we had a bipartisan bill for the border, but he said Donald Trump told the Republicans not to do it. Well, if President Trump was a former president and the swamp is still in existence, President Trump, there'd be nothing he could do if he was a former president. Joe Biden could have done whatever he wanted to do, whatever. And if he used the law and the law read as prescribed, then the law enforcement would have to do what? Abide by the law, no matter who it is. What you got to pick out of conversations like that and speeches like that is what he's saying. He wasn't real. No part of him was real. December the 2nd, President Trump said all legal documents, everything are null and void, terminated. But they never existed in the first place because President Trump used the terminology no legal effect, which means void ad initio in Latin. So that means in Latin, that means never existed. So we're moving close to the end of the blueprint. So there's a lot of things President Trump's saying right now that's really a contradiction if you didn't know there's a plan. That's what's beautiful about it, because I shared that the other day. I said, here's a post and here's a post. If President Trump didn't have a plan and there wasn't a 45-47 and the laws and orders didn't outline, these two posts would contradict each other. They would be a double standard. That would make him a hypocrite, and he's not. But see, what people do is they read every post by post versus going, wait, there's a bigger plan. Because if he's saying this here and he said this here, that would contradict each other. Right? So then the liberals would have what? They'd have an actual case that, oh, he's just a part of it too. So when quote unquote Joe talked about the border, he talked about what? A bill. A bill means funding. When a bill gets passed, it goes to what? Law. But funding. You don't need more funding. They didn't need more funding. He said they needed more agents at the border, more law enforcement, and more judges. What would judges have to do with the border? See, so when people don't listen, this is where people end up. They end up in their feelings. They end up in, that land. Anger, bitter, frustrated. Why isn't something changing? Why are they still saying? Because it's an operation. And if you were in charge and you ripped the rug out, America would already be in a civil war if most people who are whining, griping, fussing, complaining, kicking, cussing were in charge. Because you just ripped the rug out. You didn't have a strategy, didn't have a plan. You don't even know how the world operates. You don't even know how all the money's tied in. You don't know anything about the Treasury, the Reserve, et cetera, et cetera. You just rip the rug out and you damn everybody to hell. You kill everybody and execute everybody. And then guess what you are? A dictator, right? So everything's been done by the Law of War Manual, the Land of Law Warfare, the Geneva Conventions, Hague Conventions, Nuremberg trials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Lieber Code of 1863. I mean, they've pulled everything they can, combined it all. That's why the new Law of War Manual combined all those. Then it combined other Law of War manuals from different countries. That's how strategic our military and federal lawyers are. And then you got to know who's in control and who's in command. Then you got to know what they're working with. And the way you know, and the way you tell your friends and family who are combative with you or arguing with you or debating with you, whatever, those that you're still trying to wake up and, get plugged in, et cetera, the ones who are whining, complaining, and they don't want to change. The way you get to them is you go, look, do you believe in laws and orders? Yes. Okay, well, how come you can't quote one? Because everything that President Donald John Trump is the face of, there's not one single thing he has done that's gone against the grain, one tiny little mustard seed grain of our foundation. They don't know our foundation. They don't know the Declaration. They don't know the Constitution, but they definitely don't know the Federalist Papers. And so what you do to them is that's what you got to do is say, well, I can show you by laws and orders that everything President Trump is doing stems to the foundation and the Declaration of Independence. And then you have to present that, hey, you got to understand land of law of land warfare, and then Law of War Manual, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare. And then when they say, oh, that's a bunch of hogwash, say, okay, so you don't support the military? Oh, I support our military. No, you don't. That's where you get argumentative. That's where you can be condescending and say, no, you don't. You can't. You cannot support the military without military laws, military orders, military regulations, military publications, military strategies. You can't. So that's where you get them. And see, like me trying to transpire this to you is that I don't care if I was the only bull on the hill. And if I was this bull on this hill, I'm going to be a bull first off. I'm going to be on this hill. I don't care if the whole valley's laughing. There's a few things that every person who laughs at you, mocks you, whatever, cusses you, yells at you, belittles you, puts you down, everything else, whoever they are, friends, family, whatever, there's one thing they're going to have to explain is why did the United States military give quote-unquote Joe a military funeral service on January the 20th, 2021? Because that's military regulations. Military regulations don't care if you're gay, Buddhist, atheist, whatever you are. Military don't care. You willing to serve your country? You can put whatever in your mouth and whatever in your bed, and they don't care. Excuse my language, ladies. But they don't care. If you're willing to serve your nation, the military don't care. Christians care, but the military don't. So you're the gayest, gay. The queerest of all queers. If they served in the military and they honorably retired or were honorably discharged, guess what they get? A military funeral service. It don't matter how gay they are. It don't matter if they paint their damn box of a gay flag. It don't matter. They get a military funeral by military regulations. The same military regulations that Joe Biden got a military funeral service. That one aspect in history has to be accounted for. So when that one aspect has to be accounted for, guess what else has to be accounted for? How come Joe continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies of President Trump's alone that are deporting the migrants, terminating mainstream media, enforcing Doge, eliminating election interference? I mean, there's some that just stand out that it's not like, oh, baby formula and all the, babies need baby food. They need this formula. They can't suck their mamas, because blah, 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 right? No, there's certain things that are unique, that are big and stand out that aren't just your run-of-the-mill executive orders. The same thing with Venezuela, Yemen, Congo, Ukraine, and Iran. Every one of those executive orders, not President Trump's. They're from the swamp. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue them? If President Trump was this big threat and he was the big corkscrew, or he was this big piece of rebar that got put in a gear system and a welder came in there and welded it in and the gears can't move and everything's just going, then if President Trump was that to the swamp, quote-unquote Joe, the hoettes, all of them. If you thought Obama was back there pulling the strings, if you thought his manly wife was back there pulling the strings, if you thought whoever was pulling the strings from the swamp from 21 to 25, they should have done everything to abolish every single aspect of 2017 to 21. And they did not do a freaking thing. Those are what makes you go, okay, Minnesota is all part of it. Don't fret it. Don't be scared of it. But it's also part of unconventional warfare. Some of it could be where they're just shutting the streets down and they're all central casting, central actors, and they're like, hey, and they make you think it. Where people can actually see something and go, yeah, they most certainly were on 33rd Avenue. Yep, they were down. But people that don't know the skill sets to go, that don't look real. And why is everything on the 33rd or 17th Street? So see, they're taking the deep state's playbook and playing it back on them. And I don't have time to really break down again the whole how you flip that. I've done that before, how you flip it. And in reality, the real characters that are behind the scenes, they're the ones, instead of waterboarding them, that's what you're doing to them. You're going, okay, well, if you don't tell us what we want to know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to frame you. We're going to make it look like you were murdered by your child. And the whole world's going to know about it. And we're going to throw your son under the bus. And then they're behind the scenes going, no, not my son, not my daughter. Well, tell us what we want to know. And that's why I bring humor into this. You ever seen the movie The Cowboy Way? I'm not going to tell the full story, but if you've never seen the movie The Cowboy Way with Kiefer Sutherland and Woody Harrelson, all right, go watch The Cowboy Way tonight. But the favorite part of that movie is when they apprehend someone that knows where one of their friends are, that they kidnapped. And it's a little Spanish dude, and he's a well-known actor. You'll know who it is when you see him. And they're in New York City, and they take him. They asked one of their friends that they made a friend with a black cop in New York City, and they said, hey, where's the local zoo around here? He said, oh, down there on such and such. So they go. They tie this dude up. And they said, all right, we're going to ask you one more time. Where's our friend Teresa? Man, I ain't telling you shit. And he goes, okay, well, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. So we asked you, and we're going to ask you one more time. He goes, what you plan on doing with that little baby cow? And the character, Pepper, that Woody Harrelson played, he's back there holding a little baby cow. And that little cow's just like, you know. And he says, well, he said, so they pulled his drawers down. He said, well, that little baby cow back there thinks your little wee-wee is its mama's tit. And he goes, so we're going to ask you one more time. Where's our friend Teresa? Man, I ain't telling you shit. All right, Pepper, let him go. He let that little baby cow go, and you just have to picture that in real life. That
I'm
little
over here.
baby cow thought his little wee-wee was his mama's tit. All right. I bet you one thing, in real life, I bet he was squealing every location that Teresa had been. All right. So you have to apply. I
Derek.
know that this is a serious situation in the world, but you have to apply some humor because veterans, we have humor no matter what we're going through. We have humor. And that is the real what would be going on in the background going, all right, if you don't tell us this, then on TV and to the world, they're going to think this. And then when you get people, especially with this operation, this world operation, when you get everybody's hearts on one accord, like when people see all the stuff been going on with the children and the money and where it's been going and what it's been funding, when they go through all that, but they've already cleaned out the systems and they got every system and they got everybody in place, which is why President Trump alluded to the other day, game over, because he put 45, 46, 47, and 48 up on an image. All right, so libtards don't even realize 48's ours as well, presidency. All right, so all of that. But then President Trump, his nominations are very key. Most of his nominations are either veterans of special forces and special operations, which are two categories. One's a little bigger, one's a little more intricate under that, but still two separate together, but separate. They're either veterans of special operations and or veterans and or businessmen and women. That nomination of an ambassador. Now, not all ambassadors are chief of missions, but all chief of missions are ambassadors. And you'll have to go look that up as well. I've broken that down before. Don't have time right now. But the ambassador roles, every person that President Trump has nominated is either a veteran of special operations and or a veteran and or businessmen or women. That is the original formula and blueprint of President and five-star General Dwight Eisenhower when he established the continuity of government and the presidential emergency action documents, because they coincide as well, of the aftermath of a catastrophic event. Is putting all these people in place who have already proven themselves, know the blueprint, know the strategy, know the goals and objectives, and will keep this going. And then when you get every person in the normalcy realm, the average realm, and not average meaning that I'm not being condescending to people, but just your average everyday Americans, when you get everybody in a quell moment to where every entity, probably in the 85 percentile or 80 percentile, are at a place of going, whoa, or wow, holy crap, then you can start telling people, hey, there was a wolf at the door. There was a worm under your feet. And I got them out without alarming you, scaring you, this. But now we're going to have us an education moment of how to prevent this, how to prevent that, how to stay away from the things that you fear, to stay away from the things that make you scared, but also apply skill sets and teach you skill sets of how to prevent the swamp from getting back where it got. And that's where every American has to have effort and attitude. Those are the two biggest things: effort and attitude, initiative and attitude. And then you got to apply it, because every day in life, no matter what you're doing, every one of you are working for something and you're fighting for something. The fight's never going away. But what we can do, we can't eradicate evil, but we can suppress it down to a level and keep it suppressed. We were in the polar opposite of that, though, prior to 2016. It was the polar opposite. And you you know, it don't look like it and probably didn't feel like it, but it was still the United States military. A lot of generals and admirals had gone against orders, had gone against certain things. And when those stories get to be told, especially some of the generals I know and different people, when those stories get to be told, it'll be even more of the light in your eyes and the comfort to go, hey, these guys still fought, guys and gals still fought on the backside, but it's kind of like, warding off, it would be one of them and 100 of the enemy. And they still managed it and they still got through it. But Congress, DC, the swamp was overwhelmingly so intertwined and so corrupt that it required a strategy like this in order to prevent a world war and a civil war. Because at the end of the day, good people, but especially good men and women of the military, we don't want bloodshed. We don't want that. Now, we'll kick your ass. There ain't no doubt about it. It's like Toby Keith says, we will put a boot up your ass, but we don't want to at the end of the day. That's the attitude. The attitude has to be, we don't want to, but we will. If that's the last resort, well, come and take it. All right. And we'll give it to you. But other than that, you got to flip that around, though, and go, how do we get here? And then how can we prevent that? And so that's what everybody's watching, because history is going to judge these men and women. History will judge President Trump. History will judge the generals that have their faces known, the admirals that have their faces known. History's going to judge them. And anyone who is a good person, whether they're Christian or not, or they, have some faith or not, history's going to judge them. And they don't want that on their record in history's sake. And even someone as little as I don't want to be known as a traitor, because I'm not a traitor. So even me, like I tell people, I'm a retiree of the Army. I have to be careful what I say, because I fall still under Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's why I can directly speak against Captain Mark Kelly and different people, because the laws and the orders more than clearly, I mean, so infinitely clearly define it, that nothing the military is doing, nothing the officers are doing of the officer side, nothing the enlisted are doing, nothing anywhere remotely close to President Trump or the military goes against one single tiny grain of our foundation, our Declaration, our military laws, our military orders, our federal laws and federal orders. Nothing. But you got to read that, study it, and comprehend it. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to have to divorce your feelings, your emotions, divorce everything you've thought you've known your whole life, and go to that blueprint first. Learn the blueprint first. Then there may be some aspects of your life, wisdom and experience, that your mom or dad passed down to you, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, something, or maybe yourself that you've learned and developed through the years that still applies, but you still have to know who's in command and what are they operating with? What are they working with? What are the goals? What are the objectives? And then you'll be able to see it more clearly, because Minnesota's all part of it. Nothing to fear. I have friends texting me that hey, I'll be in Minnesota this weekend. You think I'll be okay? And I'm like, do you want me to send ice to you? I mean, I'll have fun with them, but so but but it's fun too to get people to say, hey, you think I can travel to Paris? You think I can travel? And I'm like, yeah, bring me back some wine, you know. But it's like you can't live your life in fear, for one, but then two, when you do know the laws and orders in place, you'll know this is all pre-planned. It is a planned strategy, pre-planned,
So
well thought out.
let me tell you a little bit about that, everybody. I saw a video from White House Grandpa, whatever you want to call him, and it was of, I'm assuming, a patriot by the way he spoke. He was out there in Minnesota in front of these protesters, had his banner, and he said, "Patriots, hold the line." And then you can hear him, "Trust the plan." And then you hear him say, "Where we go one, we go all." So, and what White House Grandpa's caption was, "This is just more proof of the movie." So, hang in there, buddy. I know it's hard sometimes for many. That's why you got to stay out of the noise. Stay vigilant. Head on a swivel. Don't be in places where if there's a protest downtown, don't go. Like, just don't put yourselves in those situations. But I'm with Derek right there. It has to be this way to wake these people up and to show the corruption. And always remember the word, everybody, or the phrase, "This is an operation." So, and what is happening? We're being distracted, but what has happened with Maduro in Venezuela is a bigger, broader picture than just arresting him and bringing him back here because of the cartels. No, it's bigger than that. It's the 2020 election, it's Smartmatic, it's Dominion, and it opens up the gates for everything. The Clintons, the Obamas, like, it's so vastly interconnected that we can't even fathom, everybody. So, Derek, I know you got to go, sweetie. You had me busting up laughing, wiping my tears because I was cracking up so hard about Cowboy, whatever. What is it, Cowboy what?
The Cowboy Way. It's a movie.
I was dying laughing. Thank you for the visual.
Well, I mean, that's a cowboy unconventional warfare right there. That's what that is.
Oh, well, you know what? Great example. I love it, and I love the humor. Because Derek's right. We got to always have that humor, right? And I just read something that a bunch of but a bunch of veterans are signing up to become ICE agents. Are you going to do that, Derek?
I don't have to. I'm already in a spot, so
Well, there
I'm
you
good.
go. All right, Derek. Well, enjoy your evening. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, I'll be around.
All right, sweetie. Well, have a good evening. God bless you. Thank you for your time once again, always. And everybody here, we'll see you tomorrow. Not here, but over on my X Space, everybody. We're going to have Rubber Duck. And if you know who Rubber Duck is, he's a lot of fun. So come join us over on my X Space, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, Derek. We'll talk to you soon.
See
God
y'all
bless.
soon.
Bye, Derek.